Welcome, everyone, to the third panel of the Bioelectronic Medicine Briefing Series. I'm Eric Olander. This is a new virtual series on the future of bioelectronic medicine, featuring the field's top experts and innovators. Now, bioelectronic medicine is one of the most innovative fields in healthcare, with perhaps one of the greatest opportunities to grow and deliver new solutions for patients. How can companies, research centers, experts, and others in the field work together to achieve this potential? How can they speak with a unified voice to win over physicians, payers, regulators, and investors, and all other key external audiences? The Alliance for Advancing Bioelectronic Medicine created this briefing series to explore these very questions. It brings together leaders and companies from across the field of bioelectronic medicine, including neuromodulation, EP, and other key subfields. Our goal is to create a unique platform for collaboration, stakeholder engagement, and public positioning beyond just technical and scientific issues. For our third and final panel, we're going to discuss where the field goes from here. How can different stakeholders join together to advance shared goals? What is the value of greater collaboration for companies, researchers, and ultimately patients and providers? And what, of course, are the most compelling opportunities to drive this progress? So we've got a great panel for you today. Some amazing experts are going to help us really dive into these questions. Let me first introduce everybody, and then we're going to get into details. So joining us first is Dr. Thomas Deering, Chief of the Arrhythmia Center at Piedmont Heart Institute in Atlanta, and also the past president of the Heart Rhythm Society. A very good morning, Tom.
Morning. Glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Wonderful to have you with us today. Also joining us is Natasha Drapeau, Executive Vice President of Biosig Technologies, and also a co-founder of the Alliance for Advancing Bioelectronic Medicine. A very good afternoon to you, Natasha.
Good afternoon, Eric, and thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you as well. And Jen French also joins us. She's the founder of the Neurotech Network. A very good morning, Jen.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Finally, we're also joined by Mario Ottiglio, Executive Director of the Alliance for Advancing Bioelectronic Medicine. And a good afternoon to you, Mario.
Good afternoon, Larry. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to start with an open discussion here where I want to get a sampling of all of your points of view. Since this is the final panel in the series on collaboration in bioelectronic medicine, let's start with really just a very simple question. What's next? Tom, let's come to you first. What kind of milestones would you like to see the bioelectronic medicine field as a whole achieve in the next couple of years?
Good question. I think, in terms of what's next and how we establish milestones, I think the key to me is, collaboration. We have made great advances in medicine, but what's most important is taking this ability, these technological developments in bioelectronic medicine, and providing a focus, creating innovation that goes across different stakeholder silos and demonstrates value to all participants, to all people who have some stake in this game. I also think it's very important. You mentioned milestones. We need to have very specifics. Open-ended conversations are important. They're great to get started and to continue and to improve and troubleshoot. But we need to establish, I believe, certain components where this is what we're going to do. We're going to initiate an institute, a specific initiative. We're going to bring collaborative people together, even if it's small, and we're going to establish, hopefully, better outcomes and better value. And I think if you don't define success with metrics and establish timelines, it tends to go on and on. So I would say collaboration with specific milestones. And I think we need to do it now because the population is changing. The elderly folks do need more care. They're getting sicker. And if we can't figure out how to deliver that care more efficiently, we're going to have clinical and economic problems. And the younger folks want to have more participation in their own care. So at all those levels, with technological development, with demographic considerations, I think collaboration with defined milestones with a coalition of the willing can help to bring us there.
Okay, so collaboration is the key word here based on what Tom is saying. Natasha, let's come to you. What does successful collaboration look like in your opinion?
It's an excellent question, Eric, and Tom, I completely agree with everything you said. I think, if you just look at how companies such as Biosec benefits from the collaboration platform that we're putting in place through the Alliance. There's so many benefits that we enjoy as part of the process. And first of all, it's our field needs innovation. It needs bold ideas. It needs cutting edge science. And to do it right, you need partnerships. And really the value of partnership cannot be underestimated, because when you engage that broader community, it is so much easier to find the right partners. And then that can lead to new idea generation. And those ideas can turn into very valuable opportunities. Actually, the creation of the Alliance for Advancing Bioelectronic Medicine has come as a result of a brainstorming session with another company. So, ultimately, we have to create that shared platform that the companies can come together and learn from. So secondly, I would say, a good collaboration is also beneficial, as it helps companies avoid many common pitfalls. We can learn from one another, and especially smaller companies, anything from navigating, say regulatory pathways to running clinical trials or working on the new policies. We can all benefit from that shared knowledge. And lastly, I would say it is also important for us to work together to just strengthen the perspective of the field. What Tom said really resonates with me, because even in my time in the industry, I see that the field can be quite fragmented, and there's so many incredible achievements that have been demonstrated by scientific community, yet the outside stakeholders really don't know much about it. So coming together, forming successful partnerships, and working towards a shared narrative can really benefit everyone.
Jen, let's kind of pick up that conversation with you right now. And as somebody who's founded a network and really values the importance of these types of partnerships and these collaborations, what would you tell somebody who's been sitting on the sidelines but thinks that maybe now is the time? Talk to us about the timing right now and the importance of getting into this at this moment.
Yeah. So, what is the right time? I would say the right time is now, because one of the things that hasn't been mentioned is that what's really helping bioelectronic medicine move forward is the founding basis of a lot of the funding that has happened over the years. So that has given us a really good basis for science. So a lot of government funding in the US, there's the NIH Spark program and the Brain Initiative and DARPA's Electrics program, but we also see the significant investment in Europe, where that actually helps to lift up the basis of bioelectronic medicine. But then you're starting to see the translational support from the financial side come in as well, where we're starting to see investors invest in key businesses that are starting to translate out that type of technology, like Inspire Medical or Exonics or SetPoint Medical. So we're starting to see that the funding come in as key collaborators. But there's also, as Natasha had mentioned, there's unique stakeholders that are kind of differentiated for bioelectronic medicine. And Sue Siegel had said that she's the chair of the engine, that it's going to take a village of various expertise to bring these new therapies into the healthcare system. So we're starting to see some of those unique collaborations, like Electrocor partnered with healthywomen.org, or Cala Health partnered with the Mass General Hospital. So those kind of unique collaborations can help build the community for bioelectronic medicine and move this whole field forward.
Mario, Jen's talking about the momentum that seems to be building in the United States, both in the public sector, also in the private sector. But what's the view from Europe, where you're sitting in Geneva?
Yeah, and I completely agree with whatever has been said until now about collaboration, and especially this momentum. We are living also, interesting times, right? One of the side effect, if you want, of the pandemic, which is a tragedy, of course, but a positive aspect, if you want, is that health has gained quite a lot of prominence in the debate, and there is a lot of interest and more kind of acceptance or curiosity towards new technologies, and also their widespread impact, because we have seen also how fast some of the innovation were kind of brought to the field because of need, right? And there is discussions around health system cost management, around how much all of that costs. Now, as we talk about efficiency, and if we consider trends that Tom mentioned before, like aging, or I could even add, the increased worldwide burden of chronic disease, a lot of people going to live with multiple chronic conditions. Now, bioelectronics offer really a great alternative in disease areas that are characterized by unmet medical needs, because these interventions are actually interacting with our bodies in a precise way, in a localized and focused manner, compared maybe to other technology where the action is unfocused, carrying the risk of a lot of adverse effect. And when we look into patient quality of life, when we look into long-term management and kind of needing to improve the quality of life of patients as fast as possible in order to also be more efficient, clearly, these technologies may have, kind of a bigger risk on that. The last point on this why now is that, again, there is a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of things are happening, right? Gene therapy, immuno-oncology, gene editing. There is quite ample room for this field to actually also find a good place. So it's really the moment, I would say.
Yeah. So Tom, what we've heard is really about now is the moment and the importance of collaboration. I'd like to kind of drill down a little bit more on this idea of collaboration, because I think that's going to be the key question that a lot of people are watching this for the first time. And again, have been sitting on the sidelines thinking about whether or not this is the right time. This is the right time. You have a unique perspective as a leader in heart rhythm management, whereas most of those who we've spoken to are working in neuromodulation. Talk to us a little bit about the benefits, in your view, of collaborating between the various diverse subfields in bioelectronic medicine.
Glad to, Eric. I appreciate the opportunity. Jen, you said it nicely, quoting Hillary Clinton about it takes a village. I actually take a bigger perspective. It takes a planet. What we really are having right now is incredible opportunities that are facing us. The technology is growing substantially, and we're in, a threshold for great opportunities there. The clinical needs, I think we've heard, are there for a variety of reasons, but there are inefficiencies and disconnects within the system. So I think what we have to do is think of this as a team sport. Collaboration, building upon those foundational opportunities, it's what's going to get us to the next level. So let me give you an example. We talked about playing across subspecialties. Let's use monitoring. We know that has an important role in a variety of circumstances. It used to be that the clinician would have to prescribe a routine monitor to a patient, and it would go out at cyber world and come back, and it would take forever. But now we have in the marketplace patients driving this approach. They want to take control. So, and that didn't just go from the medical grade monitoring to the market monitoring overnight. It took clinicians who were willing to support it, patients and caregivers who needed it. Another silo was the technological people who developed it, the engineers, the scientists, the IT people. And then lastly, but not least, are the important people who are the investors. If there isn't money to develop it, we don't get there. If the regulators put up too many barriers, it becomes cumbersome to use and cumbersome to apply it effectively. And then the payers, therefore, need to be able to be brought into the system, and not just to be asking them to pay more, but to see how we can together deliver better care at a lower price. So I kind of use the eponym, and I'll finish off with this: epic. We have an epic opportunity here. And I put E for education. We need to educate across all the stakeholder groups, not just patients, not just caregivers, not just clinicians, but the entire group of stakeholders. I think you said it very nicely, Natasha, about the public narrative. We do have a shared public narrative. And we've got to realize that these things are not just the last resort. So many times when people, for example, had a stroke or they have palpitations and they go through all these different tests, and then they say, well, go ahead and get yourself an Apple Watch or a Cardia app or something like that. We should be making this leading edge, cutting edge first technology, not downstream. So I think that secondary thing is important. I also think the information story is key, Eric. What we need to do is start educating across our specialties, sessions like these where we might have neuro people and general practitioners, and we would have payers and regulators talking about what they consider important and how they can collaborate, and then taking those information components into actual steps where we do things. And I'll finish up with the C. That is, we got to connect first. After we connect, we've got to collaborate, and then we've got to create. And I'll leave you with a quote from Henry Ford. He said, "Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and staying together is success." We need success.
Yeah. So Natasha, we have an epic opportunity right now. You have a very different vantage point, given the fact that your company, Biosig Technologies, is actually, on the journey right now. You're going into the market, conducting clinical trials. I guess the question that I have is, why not just go it alone? You get more control. It's less cumbersome. What's the value of collaborating when you might be able to do this yourself?
Well, Eric, I don't think you can do it alone. I don't think anyone can. I do think we need to bring different stakeholders together. And as I've mentioned before, anything from sort of learning how to avoid common pitfalls to exploring new opportunities, all of those elements will ultimately come together in a good partnership, and shared learnings and common objectives will help us create a much more favorable environment, for bringing innovation to patients, because ultimately that's what it's about. It's about the patient. And I think we need to remember that this isn't about, my area or someone else's. We're all working towards a shared goal. And I think it is very important. I mean, we as a company, we are still early in our clinical journey, but we already see so many benefits in being part of that shared platform, that we can interact with other companies. We can learn about their path to market. We can be inspired by their success. And I think it is very inspiring. And I can only hope that more innovators and experts will join us in next year and beyond.
Okay, so Jen, we've heard two accounts from industry practitioners. You've been covering this industry and looking at it from afar for 2 decades now. Give us some perspective on where we were 20 years ago and where we are today, and what more do you think still needs to be done?
Wow, that's a loaded question there, Eric. So I think where we were earlier was so much, I think Tom said it earlier, is that we were living in these silos. So we would innovate in an academic situation, and we would try to throw it over the wall to industry. And there would be this separation between industry and commercial enterprise. And I think today, especially with where we're seeing the evolution of bioelectronic medicine, we're seeing more partnerships between industry and academic or research institutions. And those are key. I think there's one thing that tends to be a misconception, is that the innovation happens and the research institutions and the academia, and then they just hand over and license the intellectual property to industry. But that's not the case. I think there's a two-way street here between that partnership between industry and research institutions. So I think that we're starting to see an evolution of that collaboration. So that's one of the trends that we've seen. We've also seen a different trend in terms of funding collaborations. So the vision that our funding agencies that give the basis for science, but they're becoming much more active in terms of trying to translate out that technology into the commercial enterprise, so that it could be available for clinicians and consumers, if you will. But the funding agencies have also had a lot more patience. So it's not that they're looking for a return on a Series A or a Series B. They're looking for a long-term return. So they have a longer view. So we've seen that evolve as well. One of the other thing that we've seen change in terms of collaboration is we've seen collaborations outside our typical ecosystem. So we're starting to see collaborations between medical technologies and pharmaceutical companies, with clinical organizations, and really advocacy organizations to bring the voice of the consumer. And I want to add one thing about the voice of consumer, because so many times in medical technologies, it used to be we sell to the clinician and the clinician is the gatekeeper. But we're learning that that's changing, is that we need to engage those people who are the potential end users or the patient population. And the pharmaceutical industry has figured this one out. They've been doing it for quite some time, is collaborating with the advocacy groups to be able to move the science forward. And in neurotechnology and in bioelectronic medicine, it's still in its infancy, but I think we have a lot to learn there to be able to drive our technologies forward and be able to not only pull it through the system, but to be able to push it through the system as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. So Mario, we're going to give you the last word on this section of our discussion about the collaborations. I mean, that's what the Alliance was created to do, was to bring people together, to bring organizations, various stakeholders, and to foster that knowledge sharing. Talk to us a little bit about what the Alliance has accomplished in this field, in fostering this collaboration that everybody's talking about here, and what are you looking to do in the near future?
Yes, and thank you for that question. It is exactly addressing some of the need that has been highlighted by Jen, by Tom, by Natasha. So let me give you a little bit of our origin story. We grew out of the roundtable with a distinguished group of experts that was held 2 years ago, and the assumption then was exactly, this is a growing field. There are a lot of opportunities out there. There is a need for starting creating like a sort of a level playing field, a baseline on which to build advocacy, networking, collaboration on all these issues. So we've grown since then to include leaders from different organizations, Mayo Clinic, Heart Rhythm Society, Feinstein, Battelle, Penn. There is really quite a diversified expertise there, also from different, geographically speaking, different location. And we've worked with this group to publish a paper that is in the Journal of Bioelectronic Medicine, and started to really put together information and resources, actually really trying to create exactly a safe place where you progressively will be looking for information about bioelectronic medicine, but also to kind of create a safe harbor for dialogue with payers, with patients, with the medical community. So in the past year, we have organized this series, and we've been very thrilled to host some of the most exciting startups in the field. But as you say, we will continue engaging potential members and trying to extend our reach, because we again feel that this is the right moment. And there is a little bit of an announcement we're doing now. We are launching for next year the first Bioelectronic Medicine Day. So we see this as a milestone event for advocacy and engagement, to Jen's point in particular, really maybe learning from pharma, but also from other sectors who really excel in that, in those type of activities. So just as specific diseases will have their own advocacy days, we want this to be the day when the entire bioelectronic medicine community joins together to speak with one voice and raise the profile of this community. So we're planning to do, of course, more external communication around that, but we are going to host this day in October 2022, and very soon we will announce the first round. And we hope that is a contribution really, to create that safe place, that safe harbor where several organizations that are doing research and development in this field, academia, but also patients, because it's quite important. We should not forget about that side of the equation, could actually come together and advocate and learn and encourage payers and the community overall to look more seriously, and I would say in a more kind of urgent way, right, at this field.
Okay, well, that's really interesting news, and something to look forward to for next year. Let's stay with the theme of looking ahead, and we're going to wrap up our conversation here with a quick lightning round. I'd like to get each of you to give us your take, on a call to action for organizations and leaders in bioelectronic medicine. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for collaboration, and how can folks get involved if they want to? Tom, let's go to you first.
I think we need to continue these conversations, and we need to establish educational efforts so people become aware of what we're doing. They can be web-based, they should be frequent, they should be multi-stakeholder. I think secondly, we've got to come up with some collaborative, innovative ideas that will work, that bring all the different silos across bridges rather than sitting separately. The payers, the regulators, the patients, and come up with a small priority project. That would be my third thing. Have success, learn from that success. So I would say start with education, get all the stakeholders together to get innovative ideas, pick something, and then do it and deliver.
Okay, Natasha, what's your call to action?
Well, Eric, I draw my inspiration from the past 2 years, and I know Mario and Tom have also, spoken about some of the lessons that we learned from the pandemic. And I really see, these past 2 years as difficult as it has been and continues to be in many ways, I see it as an excellent example of a very successful collaboration, multi-sector, cross-disciplinary approach. Because if you think about it, early 2020, the life science communities, global communities came together and started working towards a solution. And the fast prompt rollout of vaccines, less than 12 months from the onset of the pandemic would not have been possible without the shared expertise and learnings and a common narrative and common goal. So I really think that we can learn a lot from that experience alone. And I hope that this crisis, in a way, has set the tone, for much more successful collaboration going forward. And I do feel that, to Jen's point, the time is now. I completely agree, and I do feel that we are on a cusp of a significant development. And if I look at the US right now, there are a couple of interesting opportunities are happening, right? We briefly touched upon the evolution of funding. I really feel that the current administration is taking significant steps to enabling breakthrough research and translational research. So some viewers may be familiar with the proposed establishment of the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, or ARPA-H. It's a new 6.5 billion fund that is being put in place for next year. And this agency will be tasked with building up and driving those high-risk, high-reward opportunities. Anything from pharmaceutical to technology, but ultimately the opportunities that have potential to transform patient outcomes. And I think this all highlights to me that, really the time is now, and we should all come together and start working towards those goals. So my call to action, to other companies within the bioelectronic medicine field and healthcare leaders would be to continue sharing your expertise and learnings with others in the field, join forces, with groups and alliances that perhaps holding those important dialogues with other investment communities or the policymakers, because those are the steps that we need to take in order to enable innovation.
Okay, Jen, let's have you take out your crystal ball and look ahead in the next, say, 2, 5, and 10 years as to what you see for the industry.
So, building on what was already said, I think one of the key things that we see in the future is that collaboration is going to drive translation. For so long, we've seen so many medical devices end up in the valley of death, and I think that the collaborative movement will help translation and build those bridges over the valley of death to be able to bring new and innovative treatments to the end user and the patient population. So I think that's one of the key things. The other key thing that I would do and supplement what has already been said is that we need to engage with the stakeholders that are non-traditional, looking at building partnerships with pharma, building partnerships with the advocacy groups, and building partnerships with the clinical and the ecosystems, so that so bioelectronic medicine is not this last resort, which I think Tom said, but it's really the first call to action when we're looking at the full treatment ladder for various types of conditions, whether it's episodic or whether it's chronic.
Mario, we're going to give you the last word. What's your look ahead call to action?
Difficult task. I mean, the easy one is really join us, join the Alliance for Advancing Bioelectronic Medicine to actually have some of those discussions and even more. I mean, there is a need for a coordinated engagement with regulators, with payers, and providers to build confidence in this field. When you look at the various building blocks, right, of transforming this into a movement and to an accepted mainstream field, for lack of better expression, it would be great in the next years to see, for instance, more acceptance and more understanding, on the physician side, right? Considering bioelectronic medicine as a mainstream treatment approach, especially where there is a lot of unmet medical need. And that has to go hand in hand with patient literacy, simply. Like, patient needs to understand and demand more of that treatment. But then there is another big chunk of work that has to be done with investors and payer, because, they are the critical ones. when it comes to a wider adoption of these interventions, because we're talking about interventions carrying a different risk profile than maybe pharmaceuticals or others, maybe a higher upfront risk, but a lower long-term risk and cost. So, that type of, and Tom was saying that in the beginning of this discussion, that type of mechanism needs to be clear and needs to be explained. And the field, like the research of the companies, there must be more investment, there must be more research to actually prove the clinical value of these treatments. So it's really like this is the enabling environment, right? And and for us, that is why we set up the Alliance, is because we need to find those connections, we need to build that consensus, we need to engage outside of the field, and all of that kind of problems or challenges, they require narrative that allows actually for this field to be better understood and then supported going forward. So if it's more than a crystal ball, it's like a wish. And so that will be my wish for the next years to come.
Well, you have all made it very clear on two key messages: that collaboration is key, and now is the time to start working together. Tom, Jen, Natasha, Mario, thank you all for your insights today and a wonderful discussion. This was just a wonderful way for us to end our video series. I'm Eric Olander. I want to thank all of you for watching. And remember, you can watch all of the panels that we've done, the other two as well, online. And we hope that you find them as interesting as it's been for us to produce them. Thanks so much. Bye for now.